Hey everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Cloud Conversations with me, Peter Rising, and for the first time ever, together in person with...
Yeah, cheers, Pete. I'm Rue, by the way.
Hello, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
finally
you
in
too.
person.
Good to see you. It's good. Yep. Yeah, so back from I guess a bit of a long hiatus from the show. For me, anyway. You guys have been holding the fort pretty well while I've been away, so I appreciate that. So we're both at South Coast Summit 2022 down in Southampton just now, and we're also following up from Ignite, right? So a ton of stuff coming out of Ignite. So I guess for this show, we're just going to talk you through some of the news out of Ignite, some of the stuff going on at South Coast Summit, promote it a little bit. Yeah. I'll tell you what, do you want to promote some of the stuff you're doing at South Coast Summit so far? Talk us through it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you. So South Coast Summit, as we record this, I've done 2 talks already, which has been great fun. Had the pleasure of speaking alongside yourself, Rue, and Al Eardley, where we did top 5 mistakes to avoid when planning your security, compliance, and identity posture in Microsoft 365. That was a bit of an interactive session, which was a bit of a change of what we originally planned. We sort of went a bit rogue, which was fun. And Al brought up a Klaxoon board, and we gave people choices of things they wanted to talk about and hear about, which was great. And I've just done a talk for CPS, who I work for, who are one of the main sponsors here at the conference, on all things Microsoft Defender, trying to demystify all of the defenders, what they all are, what they mean, how to use them individually and together and all that sort of thing. And I've got to admit, I was dreading that talk. I thought I would get so many questions that I wouldn't know how to answer, because I know my way around the core Defender 365 products reasonably well, I would say, as well as I need to for someone in my line of work. But some of the more niche stuff like Defender for Cloud, not so well. But I covered that, and it went well. I've got a couple more coming up after we do this. I'm doing a mental health based talk about autism, anxiety, and something called running out of spoons. It's all about spoon theory, which if you want to know what that is, either come to the talk or look it up, because it's too difficult to explain concisely. And then I've got the privilege of joining the Microsoft Spotlight podcast for a roundtable this afternoon, in my last event of the day, after which I'm going to go, oh. And that's a Women in Tech roundtable, which I'm very, very proud to be taking part in. So yeah, what have you been up to, Rue, at South Coast Summit?
A lot of the stuff that you already mentioned, I guess. Obviously, we did the user group talk, kind of winged that, and I think it went pretty well. So again, that's the monthly security compliance group that we do at the end of every month. The 3 of us got together and kind of spoke through some traps to avoid, gotchas, things like that. And then I'm also doing a session with Nate Hutchison, so shout out to Nate. He and I are doing a session on all the different ways that you can use Azure AD authentication. So that's passwordless, MFA, certificate-based, yada, yada, yada. There's too many to list here. Mm-hmm. So we'll be doing that at 4 o'clock, talking about kind of how you can get phishing-resistant authentication, deprecation of legacy auth, all that exciting stuff, I guess. And then I guess as well, there's a pub quiz tonight at South Coast Summit. So if you haven't heard of South Coast Summit, maybe I'll backtrack a second. We're in Southampton, right? And this is an annual thing. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but my guess is we'll be back here next year, is my guess. I don't know. Maybe you've got a spoiler that I don't know about.
I don't, as it happens. No, I don't yet. But I work very closely with one of the organisers, Aaron Rendell, and his co-organiser, Nathan Sweeney. Great guys. They've put so much work into this, and more power to them, because what an effort. Really have to applaud them for what they've done. It was really nice this morning, because I saw Aaron standing behind the registration desk, and he just looked like he was at peace when he was seeing everyone filing in, because he's been preparing for this for so long, and it's the most relaxed I've seen him in a long time. So that was nice to see, just all the reward for his efforts, and him and Nathan seeing everyone filing in and excited to see all the great sessions here today. But it's absolutely great event, great venue at the Ageas Bowl, the cricket ground you may be able to see behind us in Southampton here. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's a lovely venue, and being from my neck of the woods, I'm not the biggest cricket fan in the world, but it's a lovely place. And great weather down here in Southampton. It's like tropical compared to back home. But yeah, so, if you're watching this and you're interested in it, if we are back for next year, I definitely recommend going to South Coast Summit. It's great fun if you're in that kind of Microsoft bubble that we always talk about on the show. How about we crack into some Ignite news? Because there's no shortage of it. There's a bit too much to keep up with. I mean, I've got like notes here that just go on page after page after page of all this cool new stuff. How about, do you want to maybe kick us off with anything that has interested you the most?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, I think from a security and compliance standpoint, I don't think there was a massive amount of news this time. I mean, there was some Defender for Cloud additions that were announced, and I'm just sort of scrolling down on my laptop now and trying to find where they are. They're quite... Because if you haven't checked it out, there's the Ignite Book of News, which you can find on ignite.microsoft.com, and that is going to show you all of the announcements that were there. And you can go back to the Ignite site as well and see all of the talks and sessions and keynotes that were that took place also. So yeah, I thought I'd got to the security compliance section there, but something that is quite relevant, if you're interested in Microsoft Loop, which is not something I've done too much with. My dear friend and colleague Kevin McDonnell, he loves Microsoft Loop, which allows you to collaborate within the flow of work within Teams, chats and meetings, and you can work within those chats. But what you can do now within Loop is you can use sensitivity labels in there as well to assign a level of security to Loop components, and the same with DLP, data loss prevention, as well. So that's interesting. I'll be wanting to take a look at that and see what that's all about. But I'm just scrolling even more through this immense book of news because I know there's a security section. Here we go. So in security, I think one of the bigger announcements was new protections within Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Defender for Cloud being the multi-cloud Defender offering from Microsoft, so you can protect things like not only Microsoft workloads in Azure and Microsoft 365, but things like GCP, Google, AWS for Amazon. But within that, new capabilities include Microsoft Defender for DevOps, so that's going to provide visibility across multiple DevOps environments to centrally manage DevOps security. Then we've got Cloud Security Posture Management in Defender as well. Both of these available in preview, I believe, actually. And this one will build on existing capabilities to deliver integrated insights across cloud resources, including DevOps and runtime infrastructure and external attack surfaces. So one that really caught my eye amongst this was the Defender for Cloud Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. Actually, I do love a good benchmark, I have to admit. It does make it a bit easier, definitely. So a multi-cloud security framework now generally available with Microsoft Defender for Cloud as part of the free cloud security posture management experience. So definitely want to check out. And then there was expanded workload protection capabilities as well. So Microsoft Defender for Servers will support agentless scanning in addition to an agent-based approach to virtual machines. One thing that did sort of make me raise an eyebrow a little bit was this, you can save on Microsoft Defender for Endpoint for a limited time. They're giving 50% off Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 and Plan 2 for a while. It makes you wonder, are they struggling to sell this? Who knows? Who knows? But interesting how
random.
Yeah, pretty random. And what have we got here? We've got Microsoft 365 Defender now disrupts ransomware at machine speed. So anything that combats ransomware has got to be a good thing, right? Because it's one of the nasty ones, isn't it?
So I can talk about that for a little second.
Do it, yeah.
Because like when I first seen this, because the thing you'll see when you read the Ignite Book of News is like I'm looking at that and it says 365 Defender now disrupts ransomware at machine speed, and you're like, shouldn't Defender have always disrupted ransomware? But essentially, when you kind of dig into the technical detail and get past some of the marketing fluff, it's more to do with the kind of automated actions it can now take. So I think, and maybe someone can fact check me on this, one of the main things is, for example, now if it thinks you're under a ransomware attack, it will automatically isolate the network device. And I don't believe it could do that before. I believe it was limited to maybe stuff like, kicking off an antivirus scan or, that kind of thing. I don't believe it would actually automate the isolation of a device. And that also extends to isolation of accounts. So, for example, if it noticed that a certain on-prem account has been potentially compromised, it can now automatically do that kind of thing. So I think that's what they mean at it. And you'll see that in a lot of these things, because there's another one about network protection and Defender doing like command and control stoppage.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, it should have always done that in the first place, but I guess the point is that it's just getting better at it now. It's kind of the main thing to take away from that.
Yeah, maybe they're just improving things. Maybe there was some element of that in there, but it's just getting better, as you say. But there's more in here than I thought. I've clearly not paid enough attention to this myself yet, because there's some endpoint management updates in there. There's advanced management suite is going to be launched in 2023.
The Intune rename, right?
Yeah, the Intune rename. Yeah, my goodness. So we had Microsoft Intune as a product, and then everything became Endpoint Management or Endpoint Manager, and now Intune is back. Yes. But Intune is now like an umbrella term, isn't it, for all things endpoint management? So that's going to be great for us authors, isn't it? Yeah. Search and replace. Endpoint privilege management. We've got some Entra identity governance stuff in preview as well. There's things in there for workload identities, certificate-based authentication, conditional access authentication context. This is I like this a lot, actually. Is that something you've done much with, Roo?
I've done little bits about authentication. Keep me right here. That's where, so you go into your conditional access policy, you create an authentication, you link that to a sensitivity label. The label goes on like a SharePoint site or a team, and then you get different rules on the SharePoint site or team. So exactly. I've done wee bits of that. It's difficult though because it's so dependent on the app supporting it, right? Because I think at the minute we get like SharePoint and Teams, and that's about it, I think. But I think when more apps start using that, I think it'll be very, very cool. Kick folks out of kind of high risk situations when they're in risky sign-in scenarios. That'll be quite useful.
Yeah, and set that access on a more granular level. Can only be a good thing. The more security we have, the better. Well, certainly in our view, anyway. We've got some audit search, releasing faster results by the looks of it as well. New e-discovery features as well to support modern collaboration. Something I did notice about e-discovery recently, I'm not sure if this was at Ignite, is that it's going to support modern attachments as well. Yes. Which is, if you don't know what modern attachments are, it's rather than the traditional attachments where you find that attachment on your device and upload it and send it. With modern attachments, you're actually putting a placeholder to link back to where that attachment is sitting on Microsoft in a OneDrive or a Team or a SharePoint. So there's one version of the truth out there. So really great thing. And eDiscovery can do that now, which is great. We've got some stuff to simplify data governance with retention labels. So we're now going to be able to retain shared versions as well. That's a good feature, actually. That really good, actually. So if you share a document out with a guest user or someone via Microsoft 365, then we'll be able to go back and use eDiscovery to look at those versions that have been shared, and so absolutely brilliant stuff. So yeah, insider risk new features as well. There's some enhancements to triage and detection capabilities, integration of insider risk management and communication compliance. That's an interesting one. It doesn't say much about that, actually, but I often wondered why those things were sort of separate anyway, because they're so near in what they do makes no difference. Because it'd be interesting to see if that's changed in the portal, because one thing that used to annoy me, if you went to the solutions catalog in Purview Compliance Center, you would have the insider risk management category, and then under that you'd have communication compliance, I think then information barriers, but then insider risk management again, so it was a category and an umbrella term. So maybe that's what they're talking about. We maybe need to have a look at that and see. So yeah, lots of good stuff there. Information protection, out of the box trainable classifiers are good. Although they do take a lot of time. If you're going to use trainable classifiers, customized ones, and you want to do it for a demo, a little tip: give yourself a good 7, maybe even 14 days to prepare it before. Really? Oh my God, yeah.
See, I've never done it. So, okay,
yeah.
Right.
If you want to do that for a customer, you've got to go in and turn it on and do a scanning process, and before you can, the say it can take up to 7 to 14 days. Right, I found it's best to allow at least 7. There you go.
I'll tell you one that I'm calling out because I'm just looking at the Book of Ignite news here with you, and that's co-authoring encrypted document support.
Yeah.
So this is, you know how, well, there's a couple points there. You know how with your sensitivity labels, you can either apply the permission right now or give the user the ability. It used to be if you give the user the ability, it breaks everything. Like they can't do co-authoring. I think even eDiscovery was broken by it and stuff like that. It was just the service couldn't read it. So that's changing now. And here's another one. I don't know if it's in the book of news, but I've seen it somewhere. Again, you know how you choose that option and it's like, assign the sensitivity label and then it pops up and the user chooses the permission.
Yeah.
You can now put a domain name in there rather than just an individual user. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's great because say I share it with customer.com, it means they can then forward that around internally, right? So that's there's some pretty good improvements coming to sensitivity labels.
I never like giving the user control. That user-defined labeling, I try and steer away from that wherever possible. Yeah, well, because it broke it, yeah, so why wouldn't you? But Azure Information Protection Scanner admin experience, this one's that interested me because it's saying that there's going to be like a single compliance portal now to configure that, which would be, I'm not sure what that means. It doesn't really explain, but I'm hoping it means that the scanner experience will maybe be in the Microsoft Purview Compliance Center. Yeah, because that's sort of languished on its own in the old AIP experience in the Azure portal, hasn't it? And it's kind of stuck out like a sore thumb because you wouldn't really go there anymore to do your sensitivity labels, would you? Because we had your unified labeling, and now it's all under Purview now, isn't it? So, but the scanner's really good. It's I've not used it a great deal, but it's very, very powerful to capture those on-premises file shares and on-premises SharePoint content and classify in reporting mode and then label them. Yeah, really cool stuff. And then Sentinel. We talked a little bit about Sentinel this morning on our talk, didn't we? And what's going on here?
Not much to do with Sentinel, in all honesty. Just different types of logging tiers and news regarding that. But as far as features go, not much. Not much news there, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah, not a lot. And then we've got some Azure network security stuff here as well. Low-cost IP protection option for Azure DDoS protection. This is all getting a bit Azure-y for my tastes. Kubernetes. Would you say Kubernetes or Kubernetes? I've heard it said both ways.
I never even thought about it. Let me think. I would say Kubernetes.
Yeah,
That's
me too.
yeah, Kubernetes. Yeah.
But there's a really great guy on YouTube, and he works at Microsoft, and I'm going to kick myself because I can't remember his name, but he does study crams. Really great guy. I think he's Australian, and I can't remember his name, but you'll know who I mean.
Is he jacked?
Yes.
Saville?
Yes, that's the guy, John Saville. Thank you. And he pronounces it Kubernetes. So and that threw me when he said that. So I thought, have I been saying that wrong all this time?
He was a fellow Englishman, but I might be wrong.
Is he English?
I thought he was.
All right.
He lives in Texas, I believe.
I know he lives in the States. I took his accent to be Australian or New Zealand. If you're listening, John, which why wouldn't you be? And I've got your nationality wrong. I do apologise. But what else we got here? So we got some Kubernetes. Yes, it's all getting very, very Azure-y. And that's the end of the security section. I mean, there's a ton of more stuff in there, isn't there? There's stuff on Windows 365, AVD. There's a ton of Azure stuff at the top of the book of news, and loads going on, and you can check all the sessions if you go back and take a look. But yeah,
I'll call out one other piece of news, and I guess to that kind of point, like one of the things about Ignite these days is that so much of the news is stuff we kind of already knew, because it's like stuff that was in preview is now in general availability, and it's like it's kind of news, but it's not hot off the press news, right? It's not that exciting. But one thing that I do think is worth calling out in particular, I can't remember if I've seen it in the book of news there. I don't think it was covered by Intra, but is the new authentication strengths option in conditional access.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where, so, previously, if you asked someone to satisfy MFA in conditional access, MFA was MFA, and it didn't matter how they did it, and you had quite limited options as far as how they could do that. But now what you can do is you can actually say, if I'm going to require MFA, I require it to be, phishing resistant 502, or maybe I'm going to accept SMS. So you can choose the types of authentication methods that's acceptable. And one thing that's even cool is you can go as far as to say, I will only let folks use a certain type of 502 make and model. So you can go really fine-grained into it. So for example, like for your global admins, maybe for you to sign in, you have to use like a thumbprint 502 key, that kind of idea. So again, I don't think that's in the book of news. I might be mistaken, but
I'm in the intro section now.
Yeah, it's just gone into public preview, I believe. But yeah,
one to watch
really.
out for then. That's a really good one, definitely.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, that's Ignite, really, isn't it? I mean, God, what a busy time it's been. I mean, we've had Ignite, which has been a hybrid event, many people in person, and there's been in-person hubs throughout different countries. In the UK, we had Manchester and various different ones across the world, and it was really nice to see. I mean, I'm going to have to go back and look at a lot of what was consumed, because as it came out, I watched as much as I could, but I was preparing for South Coast Summit, and I've got colleagues and people in the community who've been to UC Expo this week as well, so really, it's silly conference season, isn't it? It's going to be nice to come out the other side of it and focus on a few different things for a while, for sure. And maybe to get back to doing podcasting a bit more regularly, because as you were saying, you've had a bit of a break from the show, but we've tried to do it where we can and keep it going. But over the past month or so, we've not really put much content out, but we will try and be back and do some things for you.
Yeah, sure, I can comment on that as well. It's like, so again, I've kind of taken a bit of a break from the show. I guess I can't remember when I did my last one. I think it might have been the show we did with Matt Zorich, talking about KQL and Sentinel and all that. Or I might be mistaken there, but it's at least 8 or so months. Part of that is just kind of stuff going on in my personal life, had to get on top of. And then the other part is, I've been writing a book, so you make it look very easy. But for everyone else that's maybe tried to do a book or thinking about it, it's not easy and it's quite challenging. So it's certainly been a bit I don't want to say overwhelming for me, but I've had to kind of step back from the other kind of stuff I do, like the podcast, like the blogging, just to kind of get on top of that while juggling the day job and juggling personal life and all that kind of stuff. But the book should, as far as my work goes with it, should be finished round about January, February time. So, hopefully then I'll be in a position to start lining up some podcasts. And God knows we've met a ton of people at South Coast Summit that I've been kind of thinking, it'd be so good to get you on the show. You know what I mean? Share their experience with security, compliance, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll be, hopefully in the new year we can kind of put the gas pedal on things.
Definitely, and I think it's quite good to have a break from it sometimes. I mean, usually it happens quite organically when we all take a bit of a break, and we realize that we need it. I know certainly Azure and Kat, they've been mega busy. I mean, Azure's been everywhere lately, hasn't she? As you were saying, she's been. I was so good at it because Azure, obviously, she lives in the US, but she was over here in the UK with her work a couple of weeks ago, and I said to her, I said if I got the chance, I would try and make the effort to go and meet her, just because never met her. I hadn't met many people in person in the community before the last couple of days, but I didn't get the chance, and she was quite busy with work anyway, so you never know, there'll always be another conference, and hopefully next time. But and Kat couldn't make it to South Coast Summit either, so I've still not met Kat in person either, so hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, when we have that little break from it and you come back to it and have a sort of a relaunch show, it always feels quite fresh and nice and exciting to get back together again and get going again and speak to some guests around the community about the technology they're working with and what's going on in their lives. But also what I've enjoyed doing a lot of, and we'll try and bring you more of this as well. I know all of us have said we will try and do a bit of this as we go forward, is do some more demos. Some of the demos I did, particularly on e-discovery, have been really popular. I've had a lot of great feedback on those ones. So and I did try and go through, I did some on Entra, and was going to try and do sort of an overview of all of the principles of security, compliance, and identity, which is no mean feat. But on the subject of books, though, I mean, I'm in a similar position to you, Ru, in that I'm sort of halfway through rewriting the second edition of MS 500, the Security Administration Guide, with Patent Publishing. That is due out, should be early in the new year as well. It's difficult though, isn't it? It's difficult finding, because I'm behind now. I'm one chapter behind in the schedule because life's just so busy. But I'll make up the time. I always find a way to do so. But it's frustrating because the technology's changed. I mean, like I said about Intune changing there, I'll now have to go back to that chapter which is already submitted and change all the references to Endpoint Manager to Intune again, and by the time you've written it and you're close to release, you've got to go back and check that nothing's changed. So, but it's a bit like you wonder sometimes the value of writing a book like this in some regards, because by the time it's released, it's going to be out of date almost immediately. But saying that, the first edition of MS500, which is massively out of date now, it still seems to sell. I don't quite know why people are still buying it, because it's the chapter on Microsoft Defender for Identity is still called Azure ATP. So, and the interface for that is completely different. But I still get some pretty nice royalties off that one. So thank you if you've bought it. But if you're looking to buy it now, I would say don't buy it. Wait for the new one in early next year. But there you go. Anyway, I think that's probably all we've got, really, isn't it, for South Coast Summit and Ignite and an update on ourselves. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, not particularly. Again, it was good to kind of get back on the mic, I guess. Yeah. You know what I mean? Good to catch up yourself as well. Yeah. And then, like I said, so South Coast Summit, I'm assuming is going to be back next year. So, I would think so. Totally recommend it. It's a great event, great for networking, great for learning stuff. It's honestly a little bit overwhelming as far as the number of sessions that are on offer, so it'll keep you very busy and absolutely worth your money. So that's it from me. I'm going to sign off and I'm going to hand back to you for the closing words.
Amazing, thank you, Roo. So as always, we appreciate your support. I've spoken to many people at South Coast Summit. This reinvigorates your passion for doing this, actually, because many people have come up to me and say, I really enjoy listening to Cloud Conversations in the car or when I'm having a run. I've listened to all the content you've put out there. Some people watch it, some people listen on Spotify and whatever. So thank you for supporting us. Go give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/c/Cloud Conversations. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're not hard to find, and you can find all of us on Twitter as well. We're at what we call these days at CloudCons365. It's been a while since I had to remember that. And we can find us all individually on Twitter as well. So don't be shy. Come and talk to us. And if you want to be on the show, let us know. So thanks, Roo. Great to see you in person. And we will see you all very, very soon on another episode. Take care. We'll catch you down the road. Bye-bye.